Fellas, what happened? That was gonna be great.
He was just being too loud. I couldn't concentrate.
You know, let's try it again. But what I feel like it needs a little more of biochar. For years we've made biochar. We've made a lot of biochar. We've made biochar in open burns where we've let a bunch of waste material, shrubby junk and chunks of logs and trees we've cut down and all kinds of things just burn down until they become embers, and then we extinguish it, and then we soak the char and we add it to our gardens. This was very important when we were dealing with really exceptionally bad soil. We've also borrowed a biochar, like a big cone thing that a friend of ours had made, and we burned in that to try and make char, and it's more like the Kon Tiki kiln sort of an idea. And that worked pretty well, but I like the open burns and the pit burns better because we could make so much more. We also even made charcoal when we were down in the Caribbean with my friend Mike, who is a farmer on the island of Grenada, and he used traditional methods to make this big burn where he would make a pit and build up walls and pack in soil and brush and everything and pack it around a bunch of logs and light one end, and with the exclusion of oxygen make this perfect charcoal that when you pulled it out it would just ring like a bell. But recently we've discovered a new, simple, at-home, totally free method of making biochar that makes really high quality char out of some really strange materials, like stuff that you couldn't just throw into a regular fire, like corn stalks, tree bark, twigs, pieces of bamboo, banana leaf shreds, sawdust and shavings from a wood lathe, oak leaves, chunks of red oak, pieces of cow manure, magnolia seed pods, old hay, sweet gum seed pods, pig and chicken bones, and pomegranate peels. Back on February 6th, I received an email from longtime correspondent Aaron Reeder, who sent me a link to a video on a YouTube channel called Live on What You Grow. I'm interested in biochar, so okay, how to make a little free biochar retort. This might be all right. So I watch it and it's like, he's gonna make a tiny little thing out of cans or something. Huh, that's kind of interesting. Oh, okay, I see what he's doing. He's going to put it in his wood stove, or you could put it in your fireplace, and you could make a small amount of biochar every time you did a burn. Okay, that's kind of cool. And I'm looking at how he puts it together. I'm like, okay, this is actually very clever. I actually really like this. And then I thought, all right, you've sold me. I am going to go ahead and build one or two of these things and see how it works. And now the promise of the video was that you could build a biochar retort in less than a minute. Sadly, when I did it, it took me over 2 minutes to build. And that was because I had to go out to the shed and find both a hammer and a screwdriver. But once I found both of those, I was able to finish it, and it really did work. And I had to buy a specialty tool as well, so there was a wait period. But I'm not going to count the 4 days that it took for Amazon to get it to my door, because then it would be 4 days and 2 minutes, and really the actual building process was about 2 minutes, and I could have done it in one if the shed wasn't such a mess. Here is my first mini biochar retort, made from 2 number 10 cans, one of them crimped to fit into the other one with a hole at one end to allow vapor out. I did exactly what the Live What You Grow video said to do, and I went down to the local pizzeria and I asked them if they had any number 10 cans, and they gave me a couple of number 10 cans, these two right here, and I made it. And then I went outside in the dark because it was dark, and I got some wood chips, and I filled it about half full of wood chips, and I said, hey, look it, we're underneath this sweet gum tree. I'll take some of those sweet gum pods and stick them in the other side, just because. So I stuck sweet gum pods in the other side, and I packed it as well as I could, jammed it together tightly, kind of hammered it together so it was tight, went inside, put it on the fireplace, went to bed. The next morning I got up and there it is, my burned cans looking like they had just been shot from Mars, and blown up the countryside and been found in a pit by the unsuspecting citizens of the village. So I carefully pulled it out of the fire. Okay, it's not too hot, it's just a little warm. And with some sadness, I felt it and I'm like, it's just ash inside. It weighs almost nothing. Like, I know it was pretty heavy last night when I put it in from those damp wood chips. And I said, all right, it probably didn't work. Probably too much air came in the end. Maybe he had a different size screwdriver or something. So I took it outside, and with some difficulty I banged it from one side to the other because it had frozen together pretty solidly in the fire. Finally opened it up, and all of this beautiful fluffy char fell out. It had gone from about 2 cans worth down to about that much worth once all the moisture and everything was out of it. But I had perfect charcoal. It was so light because there was just no moisture in it whatsoever. Dry as a bone, exact pore structure, exact tiny sweet gum pods. Perfect, absolutely perfect. As if everything had been magically removed from them but the carbon. So once you have one of these guys, you can load it up with whatever materials you want. As you saw, those crazy things that I converted to biochar. So long as it's mostly carbon based, you can put it in here and it's going to leave some sort of a char. But of course wood charcoal or bamboo charcoal, that sort of thing is going to be great for your garden because of the pore structure. So I don't know how much use you'll get out of, you know, charring socks or something like that. So I would stick to the stuff that we know, you know, works, except for experimental purposes. But bone char, that's awesome. Wood char, all that kind of stuff. And I was going to show you in this video how to make one of these, but I decided I'm not going to do that. I want you to go over to Live on What You Grow's channel and see how he made it, and go subscribe to his channel, because it's hours and hours and hours of entertainment once you've made one of these things. And I think you should just go over and see how he made it, what tool he uses, and go send him some encouragement and say thank you so much for being so creative and coming up with something so cool, because this is an excellent little machine. And we've done dozens and dozens of burns so far, and it takes just a few hours to make top quality char on a small scale. And if you do this regularly because you have a fire going in the winter, or a wood stove, or even if you're out camping, you could make char in your campfire. If you've already got a fire, why not get some extra char out of it? Biochar becomes a useful amendment in the garden when it has been charged. If you take biochar and you till it directly into the soil, it's able to soak up a lot of minerals, particularly nitrogen, and your plants will notice that. So you'll end up with yellowy, sad plants, or plants that just don't want to grow at all if you put the biochar directly in the garden. But if you charge it first, meaning you soak it in something, so all these pores and all this amazing ability of charcoal to soak up materials is used, and that mineral content gets inside of it, and then hopefully later you get your bacteria and your fungi in there as well, you end up with a really good kind of a battery in the soil. Another benefit of the carbon in the soil is that it has a high exchange capacity, meaning that it allows plants to take minerals out of the soil with ease, much easier than, say, our sand, which does not have a very high exchange capacity. So adding carbon, adding that charcoal to the soil, increases the exchange capacity of the soil, meaning that the minerals that are in the soil will be easier for the plants to access. And we did some experiments a couple of years ago with the flavor of different vegetables, and we used charged biochar in one of our test beds, and the vegetables that we grew in the charged biochar tasted better and were larger than when we used 10-10-10 or in our control group. We tested various different amendments, and some of the best tasting were in biochar that had been charged with a mineral solution. So we know that it works. So once you have your little cans empty, you just got to put them in a solution. And I have here some fetid swamp water that my daughter made. Do you want to explain what you put in this?
So this is hay and straw and weeds and kitchen scraps and a bunch of old tacos.
And how long has that been rotting?
About 5 months or so.
Now all we got to do is let this soak for just a couple of weeks usually. Probably a few days might be enough, but I want to make sure it's really good and soaked. And why not? We're not quite into gardening season yet. Those old tacos are going to soak in there and fill it with everything that it needs. This was the first one we built from the 2 large cans. This was a couple of smaller tomato sauce cans, which we saved after making dinner the other night. And then these are a couple of longer soup cans, as you can see in the original video. He uses different sizes, and of course if you have a smaller fire or a smaller space that you're burning in or whatever, you know, you can use a smaller one. You get obviously a lot from this, but this one burns really fast. This thing will completely convert in a very short period of time. So it's a much smaller scale than we normally would bother with. You know, we're used to burning in the big piles and everything, but it really is fun, and it makes much higher quality char from even tiny itty bitty materials like the sawdust and shavings off of the wood lathe. That's really cool. I mean, you can convert some itty bitty stuff and really get high quality charcoal that just rings out and is completely ready to be soaked. Now, one thing I have noticed to tell when it's done burning, when you load one of these guys up and you stick it in the fire, I just stuck it on top of the logs in the fireplace, put it on top of the logs. After a very short period of time, it will start to steam. And then the steam is then replaced by a flame as the wood gas inside, so it starts to gas out the flammable materials from the inside, and you'll actually get a little jet of flame. If there's any open flame in the fireplace beneath it, it'll start going, and you'll get this little torch out of the side of it. And that will last usually for about a half an hour or so. Sometimes I've rolled it around and got it to restart. But usually when that stops and it stops burning out from around the joint and there's no more flames coming out of this little hole right here, then you will see that it's done. I mean, it's obviously done. And at that point, I've pulled it out. If you pull it out any earlier and you haven't turned it over once or twice, if you turn it over and it doesn't make flames out of it again, it's done. If you turn it over and it starts to flame again, that means there were some parts inside that did not gasify yet. So just, that's how you can tell when it's done. When it's done, go ahead and take it out of your fire very carefully. If you have tongs, that helps, or just wait until the next morning and pull it out. It's going to be fine. Because the oxygen is almost completely excluded from it, it doesn't burn down into ash. Like if you have a fire outside and you light it, there's a part where it goes down to charcoal, and then there's a part where it just melts away into white ashes, and this will not do that. So just a couple of points I learned. Anyhow, thank you very much to Live on What You Grow for the idea. I will put a link to their channel in the description and at the end of this video. And thank you to Aaron for sending the idea. It's been a lot of fun. Since we had a fire going anyway, why not make a little char out of it? We get the ashes from the wood that were burning beneath it, which we can throw in the garden, and then we get perfect char to improve our soil, potentially for a very, very long time. Thanks for joining me. Catch you all next time. And until then, may your thumbs always be green. Listen, guys. I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like everyone else. The difference is once I put my pants on, I make biochar.
What's that even mean?
That's the way the video ends.